Good, thank you. And and yourself?
Thanks. I'm fine too. Thanks a lot for joining.
Of course, of course.
Well, long story short, the pandemic hit and you guys locked yourselves in the studio to compose the Darkfighter album. With no touring prospects, did it help to focus solely on the music?
Well, yes, yes. The short answer is yes. But also, I think there was so much going on that having music to lead into was vital. I think having something to do, having something to having having a piece of music that you can communicate with and communicate to and get communication from through those very difficult times. I feel that it was very vital. It's very, very important. And I'm thankful to have music in my life on the daily basis. But going through all of that, I don't know how I could have made it without music.
Do the experiences of the past few years, the pandemic years, in any way reflect in the lyrics of the album?
Absolutely. I think that both Darkfighter and Lightbringer are the most autobiographical Rival Sons albums for me. For my writing, certainly, I think I wrote closer to the bone and more directly from the heart than I ever have before.
Is there a particular song from the Darkfighter album that holds special significance for you?
From Darkfighter or from Lightbringer? From Darkfighter?
From Darkfighter, yeah.
From Darkfighter, I think that there are three. I think that Rapture is a big one because it signifies a turning point for me in the writing process for these records. It signifies a recognition of my pursuit and a recognition of progress. And then there is a song called Horse's Breath. Horse's Breath is definitely about it's the perseverance of it doesn't matter how difficult things might be, that you can't go back to where you started because you started back then and you can't go back in time. You can't do those things. You can't go back retroactively. You can only deal with what you have now and what is in front of you and what is coming and what will be with you moving forward, and that exploratory sense. And I think that is a key ethic to the Darkfighter album for sure. But then and then after that, there's a song called Dark Side. And I think that Dark Side is really mourning the loss of someone you love to substance abuse. It's mourning the loss of someone who is addicted, with a severe addiction. Addiction is a very hungry beast, and it's a parasite that works to devour its host slowly. And I think when you love someone, all of us, your listenership or readership, I think that everyone knows what it's like to have someone that you love very much slip through the cracks of addiction. So watching that is very difficult because when you love an addict, you mourn the loss of that person long before they're dead. And I think that it's a very difficult thing to go through, but Dark Side is very much about that. And I wanted to write a song like that because I know that other people go through that painful situation that I was going through. And so I wanted to try to show those people. I felt very alone when I was going through it, and I wasn't sure exactly how to deal with it, but maybe by having some music about that maybe that can help somebody else.
And what do you hope to evoke in the listener with such a content, such a lyrical content?
I don't, just maybe they, if there's any hope to evoke anything, it's that they can feel better about themselves, and so that they can feel better about what they're going through. And it doesn't matter if it's the situation that I just described, that I, songwriting for me is a vehicle to try to help people feel just a little bit less alone. Because I know that at its best, that's what music has done for me all throughout my life. Whether I was a child, when you hear a song that you really relate to, it helps you feel part of something larger. And I think that that's part of what was very attractive about music for me in the first place, that I felt like I belonged somewhere that was more than the small town that I came from as a child, you know, or something larger than my personal family or my friend group, that there was something larger out there for me to join with.
Did you change anything in the recording process? I mean, did you experiment with something for the first time, or perhaps the circumstances forced you to improvise something?
I think yes to all of those things you just said, Marcelo. Um, the circumstances forced us to improvise, and they forced us to write and to record remotely, and send ideas back and forth to each other, as well as going into the studio. So there was a lot of remote recording in my home studio, recording in Scott's home studio, and Michael and Dave, for each one of us recording outside of the studio became a necessity because of the time crunch we had and the limitations we had with being in the studio. Now, mind you, we had more than enough time in the studio, in RCA Studio A in Nashville with Dave Cobb and with Eddie Spear, and then also in Dave Cobb's studio in Savannah with Greg Gordon as a recording engineer. We had more than enough time in the studio. It's just that I think that the nature of our writing, because of this social and cultural climate running through mid 20 through late 21 into early 22 and mid 22, I think that the climate of what was going on, I found myself certainly with needing more time to write. I needed more time to explore and for that introspection and to see where I was artistically, where I was emotionally, and where I was with my growth. And I know that it was a real pain in the ass for a lot of people, but I mean, for me, that's just what I needed. I needed that amount of refractory time because I knew that there were things inside. I knew that there were things that needed to be born. I knew that there were things that needed to be said, and sometimes it takes a while to articulate and form these ideas in the way that that will feel honest and that will feel authentic once you put them out, you know.
The first preview of the Lightbringer album is the song Mercy, and I perceived a very strong message regarding maybe taking it easy and not letting anger take control. Do you feel that people grew more angry with the pandemic?
Oh yeah. Oh, people got super angry. It was insane. I mean, here in the United States, with everything that we had, with you know, we had a virus that was killing people, and then we had a vaccine and that was helping people, and then you had people that wanted to politicize everything because it was an election year. And I think that there were just a lot of people that were very afraid, and that's really at the root of so much of it. Good people turning angry, you know. But when they feel isolated and they feel backed into a corner, that will force good people to react and to act in ways that aren't necessarily their best selves. And that happens to all of us. And I saw that happen. And I saw people uh, developing a lot of judgment and creating an other uh, in order for them to blame so many uh, so many things on, because it was a very confusing time. There were far more questions than there were answers, and I think that that made people very afraid. And I believe that when fear takes hold, it absolutely brings out the worst in us, because you have the opportunity to either show mercy and show patience and come together, or you have people that will turn on their neighbor and turn on each other. And all of those things are part of human nature. I understand that. It was very difficult to see, though, nonetheless.
Did you find yourself more angry than you used to be?
Mm.
In a way that mercy is also a message to yourself?
I think that for me, it didn't necessarily manifest in anger. I feel that all of the cultural phenomenon that pervade itself, and even in a world culture, but specifically here in the United States, I think that it made me want to dig my heels in deeper to try to understand who I was in this landscape. Because of all of these feelings, the feelings of disillusionment, um, and not knowing, the uncertainty of not knowing how things were going to go, I believe it made me double down on the art of self-expression. And it made me want to get a little bit more existential in my view, of what I was doing artistically, and to look back and take stock at the art I was creating in the rock genre, because this is a genre that is often, I mean, now it's primarily relegated to novelty in so many places. When you talk about rock music, it's all just people want to talk about the 1970s, or they'll bring up the same five historic bands, and that's it. Um, I don't know about any of that, but well, the thing that I do know about is that Rival Sons and myself, like we're neck deep in this genre, living and breathing in the now, living through right now, living through the world now. And we don't have, in myself, I certainly have no inclination and no intention to propagate what happened before. We've made those records. We've made records like Pressure and Time, and some of those early records where we were certainly relying on our influences. And I just think that time now isn't the time for that. When we were going through so much, over these 2 years of making the Darkfighter and Lightbringer records, it became very evident that we had to fight for our survival by embracing the present, and by embracing where we were then, and looking to the future as opposed to the past.
Can we expect the Lightbringer album to be the sunny counterpart for Darkfighter?
I would not call it sunny. I would say that it is closure, where Darkfighter is very open-ended when you finish it. That song Dark Side. It's very much, it leaves you on the edge. And but Darkfighter will provide context, or Lightbringer will provide context to Darkfighter. As soon as you hear it, it suddenly it just provides that context, and it's more of an answer than a sunny counterpart. But I know what you mean by that. It's just not like it's not that it's a happy record or anything. It's more of
Lights of hope, maybe.
Well, yes, there is more hope, but the introspection is of a different kind. The introspection has more to do with taking stock of the difficult journey that Darkfighter was.
Yeah. Rival Sons had the opportunity to visit Brazil on 2 occasions. How were those experiences for you and the band?
Well, we loved it. The first time we came to Brazil, we came down for let's see, Monsters of Rock, you know, and so we came down to Sao Paulo, and we were invited down there by Ozzy because Ozzy and Sharon had seen us at an award show in Los Angeles, and I think they invited us down to Monsters of Rock. And I think maybe they wanted to see how we did with an audience that large, because I believe they had plans to bring us on the Black Sabbath the end tour. So I think that they brought us down there to see what we could do, and we did well. It was an amazing show in Sao Paulo, and after that we came back with Black Sabbath, and they were both, playing in Brazil was it's unlike any audience that we had played with before. Even that first time when we came to Sao Paulo, the audience knew our songs, and that was very crazy for us. They were singing all of the songs, and that was a very cool experience for us. And then when we came back through the Sabbath, it was equally exciting, and we've been trying to get back there ever since. Just this morning, there was a meeting on figuring out how to get us there, how to make it financially possible for us to come down, whether if we can get on festivals or if we can do any headline dates, which we would love to do both of those. Brazil was very good to us, and we're aware that you guys want us down there. We just have to make it work.
I'd like to mention that I was in the audience in Rio de Janeiro when you opened for Black Sabbath, and you guys made such a great impression. And then years later, when you released Feral Roots, I thought, well, these guys are at their absolute peak. Little did I know that you kept on releasing one better album after another. And man, that's amazing. So for my last question, I would like to know what today Jay would say to that Jay that was up on stage in 2016 in Rio.
Oh, I would probably just tell him to keep doing what he's doing. And in the same way that I think the Jay from 5 years in the future would tell me right now, like, just focus on the art, man. Just try to double down on authenticity. And it doesn't matter what anyone says. You have to make the art that you think needs to be made. That's what I would tell the Jay from Rio de Janeiro on that stage, because that is what I felt, and that's what I feel now. I feel that exact same way. It doesn't matter if it's the label or management or anyone in the industry when they tell you, oh, you need to make something that sounds a little more like Foo Fighters, or you need to make something that sounds more like the fucking Black Keys, or, any of that stuff. Like, well, no, that music, let them make that music. We'll make our music. We'll make our music the way that we make it, and that's all we need to worry about. And I think that in the face of all of this adversity, I think that artistically, it's the same thing that I would implore any artist listening to this. You have to look for the art that only you can create. Don't make the thing that somebody else is making. Make that special thing that only you can produce. The thing that is your signature. Be that thing, and don't worry about anything else. The world doesn't need another Rolling Stones or Beatles or Foo Fighters or Zeppelin or any of these bands. We need new stuff. We need new music. And I know that for us, we wore our influences on our sleeve early on, because that's what you do. You try to emulate your heroes. But if you're if you're fortunate enough to stay on the horse for long enough, you'll find something that is unique about yourself, and just try to amplify that, and fuck everything else. It doesn't matter. You know, make the music that you need to create.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you guys make it to Brazil, because I really need to see Rival Sons live one more time.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Absolutely. We're really trying, Marcelo. Thank you so much.
Bye bye. Have a nice day.
Bye bye.